Hi, if you like the video, please remember to subscribe.
Hi, I'm Rob from roblockphoto.com, and today we're going to be having a quick look at my budget collection of lenses that I've built up over the last couple of years. I thought it might be a good idea to share this glass that I've got, because I picked them up pretty cheap. I think probably all in all we're looking at a total price for these Canon EF lenses and EFS lenses of about £250. And that's basically because I bought second hand. I've been on the lookout for bargains, and also I guess I've been willing to explore kit that isn't the best and that you've got to kind of work around to get the most out of. And maybe it's something that you could consider yourself if you've bought into DSLR systems such as, or SLR systems such as Canon or Nikon or Sony or any of the other systems, and you're a little bit stumped. You're a little bit disappointed because if you've come from like the bridge camera world, you had one camera with one lens that did everything, like the Fuji super zooms that go from macro right through to long focal lengths, and it can be a bit disconcerting when you come to the SLR world and all of a sudden your focal lengths are a lot more compressed. But anyway, what I'm going to go through today is my collection of lenses that really take me down from very wide angle indeed, round about sort of 14mm, which is pretty wide, out to 600mm, and also some speciality lenses like for macro and portrait work. So the first couple of lenses that we'll look at are really the workhorse lenses, and these are the two lenses that you are going to do 90% of the photographs you're going to take. We've got the 18 to 55 IS, and we've got the 55 to 250 IS. These are the budget lenses. These are the ones that are 4 to 5.6, and I think this is the same, is it? F4 to 5.6. The kit lens normally comes with most Canon cameras, and this is like your first image stabilized value telephoto lens. I bought these both second hand from someone who was upgrading, I think, to a 7D. But I was just working with a 28 to 90, which I'll show you in a minute, and bought them on eBay. I think it was for £150, but I did that, well, not a real sneaky thing, it's just a buyer's prerogative really. I saw them come up, and the seller was selling them together, and I just quickly sent her or him an email saying, you know, what's your best price? If we're going to buy them now, what's your best price? And they said £150. I said, right, I'll pay for that straight away. And really, these two little lenses are brilliant. Both got IS on them. Obviously, you can use the 18 to 55 for your landscape work, general photography work, close-in portraits. A great little lens. The image stabilization basically means that if you're sort of shaking or you're using longer shutter speeds, the stabilization that's built into the lens helps you to keep sharper photos. Now this, the 55 to 250, is a much underrated lens in my opinion. Brilliantly sharp, fabulous for portrait work, especially flash assisted portrait work, yeah, really sharp lens as well. I wouldn't hesitate to well, I use this basically for portrait photography a lot, because with portrait photography, often if you want that flattering image, you move out to your 70 to your 100, your 130mm focal lengths, which this lens covers, and it does it very well indeed. Super sharp, fantastic lens. And you've probably noticed on both of these lenses, because these are my walk-around lenses, they've both got lens covers on. Now these things, a couple of quid on eBay if you don't buy the Canon branded ones, and they protect your lens from getting knocked, the front of it, and also they stop glare. So when the light's coming in at funny angles and it bounces around your lens and reduces the contrast, by having one of them on, it helps a lot. So if you, a tip for improving the quality of your lenses, fit a lens hood. So they're the workhorses, the 18 to 55 and the 55 to 250. Now this little beauty, this is a 28 to 90. This was the old kit lens that used to come on Canon film cameras. It's very slow. I think it's f4 to f5.6. And what I should probably explain is, with a basic zoom lens, its maximum aperture is kind of relative to how much it's zoomed in. So it starts off at f4, that's the size of the hole, but because the lens gets longer, the hole doesn't get any bigger. And the way the lens works, so at f5.6 it's slower. You might think, well, why bother with one of these when you've got the 18 to 55 and the 250? The reason for this is this makes a great backup lens as well. You can have this in your kit, and if you're to drop your 18 to 55 or your 55 to 250, and it were to, you know, break, or you were to lose them or something, this is a really cheap lens that you could have that covers most focal lengths, and you know, as long as you stop it down, as long as you're shooting at f5.6, f5.8 is nice and sharp. No image stabilisation, so you got to watch out for those slow shutter speeds, but a good backup. I picked this one up for, I think it was on a film camera, and it cost me about a tenner. So, you know, more than happy with that. It's a good backup lens. Now, first of the speciality lenses, I guess you would call it. This is a nifty 50. This is the Canon EF 50mm f1.8 Mark 1 lens. Mark 1 just means it's got a metal barrel, metal mount. I think the focusing ring is slightly different, and it has the infinity focus type stuff on it. So why do you want one of these? Well, the beauty of the nifty 50 is the size of the maximum aperture, in the fact that it's got an f1.8 maximum hole. I don't know whether you can see that or not. What that means is it lets in a massive amount of light, which means that you can use it in low light conditions, and also it means that it's great for portraits. Now my little lights, my little LED lights are flashing slightly, I think maybe at the moment. You probably see me going brighter and darker. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to change the batteries in, and then we're going to carry on talking about the 51.8. Okay, now hopefully they'll stop flashing. Might be a little bit dimmer because I've just turned half the side off. I think the battery's going flat. Back to the 51.8. So it's great in low light situations, and it's very good for doing portraits or any type of work where you want a very, very small depth of field. And if you can imagine, this is the type of lens that gives you those dreamy shots, you know, where you're taking a picture of a model and the eyes are in focus, but everything else is blown out. So it's very good for isolating your subject against a background. This one is probably one of my best bargains ever. I got this attached to a front of an old film camera at a car boot sale for £3. However, you can buy them brand new off eBay, the 1.8 Mark II version, for the best price is normally about 70 quid, but they go between £70 and £100, and they're a bargain. They're not the toughest lens in the world. You drop it, it's going to break, but it gives you the ability to shoot in low light, gives you the ability to create those lovely out of focus background shots for portraits and product shots and lots of different things, and it's a kind of a bit of a must for every photographer's bag. It's not quite as useful as it used to be in the older film days, because, as you probably know, with your digital SLR, because the sensor on it is quite small, what you've got to do is it's smaller than an actual piece of film, and so what that means is that this is actually slightly more telephoto than it would be on a film camera. So it's a little bit zoomed in, so sometimes it can be a little bit close. But apart from that, it's a great, but that often can be good for portrait shots anyway. But that's very nice. So that's the 50mm 1.8. Let me just grab a drink of water, and then we'll go on to the next lens. Okay, so the next lens we're going to have a quick look at is, it's not a lens in its own right, it's more of a filter or an extension. And you've probably seen these on eBay and wondered a little bit about them. And this is a 0.45 wide angle lens adapter, this little baby here. And what you do with these is they go on the front of your existing 18 to 55 or whatever lens you've got, like so, and it increases the angle of view, if you like, by 0.45. So it turns your, let's call it a half, so it changes your 18mm lens into a 9 or 10mm lens. So it gives you a wide angle. In reality, at 18mm you get a lot of vignetting, you can see the corners. So you've got to zoom in a little bit. So I found it's probably more like sort of 20mm. So it's really giving you the equivalent of say a 10mm or a 12mm lens. You are losing a little bit of sharpness, especially around the edges. But these types of little adapters, these wide angle ones, I think are great to have in your camera bag because they're small, they're pretty lightweight, and if you're in that situation where you've got to get back and you can't physically get back any further because you need that wide angle shot. Maybe it's an architecture shot, maybe it's a classical landscape shot where you've got something on the ground in front of you, and you want to get that and the distance. This little baby, for a matter of £12, £15, probably the same equivalent in US dollars, gets you that focal length without having to spend £300 on something like a 10 to 22 Canon EF lens, if you like. Now, the glass isn't brilliant. You're going to get lots of flare and glare if it's a sunny day and the light's hitting it from different angles. But for those rare occasions, and where I think they are pretty rare, when 18mm isn't wide enough on an EFS body, one of these little adapters comes in very well. And also it has a macro function as well, which we'll go on to now. So what you can do, you can unscrew the main body and then it becomes a macro filter. So again, you screw it on. So all of a sudden we can focus on things that are incredibly close to the camera. And so you're getting two for the price of one. Again, you're losing softness around the edges of the photo. It's not going to get you any awards for sharpness or image quality. But, if you're your average amateur photographer who doesn't want to lug around or spend the money on a dedicated macro lens, it's a great solution. And I say they come together. Now, you may well see them bundled with a telephoto adapter as well. Now, I've tried the telephoto adapters and they're no good at all. They're quite frankly rubbish, so don't waste your money on them. But the wide angle adapters with the macros on, definitely, have a play. I've been very impressed, and I keep this in my bag. But what you'll probably find though, what I find is you don't actually use it that much, because I find the 18 to 55 and the 55 to 250 for me cover most focal lengths. Now, while we're on the subject of macro, this is another solution that works incredibly well. And this is the extension tube option. Now you can pick up Canon EF extension tubes, pretty cheap, but you lose autofocus and all that sort of stuff. This is another way of doing it. Now what you do is when you use an extension tube on a lens like this, that enables you to focus incredibly closely, so you can do brilliant macro shots of spiders, insects, flowers, that sort of thing. And by combining extension tubes with an old M42 lens, so these are M42 extension tubes with M42 lens, which basically is an old type of lens that uses a screw fitting, manual focus, manual aperture. That screws onto there like that. The other thing you need to buy is a M42 to EF adapter, and that enables this lens to then fit to your digital camera. I don't know, I think I got this lens with an old, probably it would have probably been an old Russian camera or something like that. A tenner probably, extension tubes, a fiver. Adapter was probably a tenner, so it's pretty expensive. I can then just whip off the 18 to 55. And now I've got an incredibly capable, this is a bit of an overkill here, having all those extension tubes on. The magnification is massive, and you do lose a lot of light, so you have to use the camera on a tripod, or you lose flash, and that sort of stuff. But that gives you a fantastic capability to shoot very nice macro shots. And the magnification, excuse me, is really controlled by how many of these extension tubes you put on. So that's a great way of having very, very cheap macro photography for your camera. So we've gone through sort of wide angle to macro photography. So now you're saying, well, what about super long? Because we've only gone up to 250mm. And if you're doing wildlife photography or sports photography, or generally you want to go longer, excuse me, just have a quick glass of water. How do you do that? Well, One solution is to get one of these babies. Now this is a 2x teleconverter, which I bought at a car boot sale for about £5 I think, and it's a Canon autofocus one. However, the problem with these is they only work with Canon EF lenses. So an EF lens is like this 50mm, excuse me, 1.8, and an EFS lens is like this 55 to 250. The difference is in the mount. These were designed, the EFS lenses are designed to work with crop sensor cameras. These are designed to work with full frame cameras like film cameras or like 5D Mark IIs and stuff like that. And teleconverters such as this only work on EF lenses. So what you need is a budget EF lens. So here we go, one budget EF lens. This is the really old Canon 100 to 300 push pull zoom. So this only gives me another 50mm on my 55 to 250. Doesn't have image stabilisation, but it only cost me 40 quid from Gumtree. But it's an EF lens, which means that with this baby and the 2x teleconverter, all of a sudden I've got 600mm worth of focal length. Wow, you say? That's brilliant, isn't it? However, there is a catch, and the catch is the loss of light. So this is a f5.6 lens all the way through, so it's 5.6 at 100, 5.6 at 300. Put a 2x teleconverter on, you lose 2 stops of light. So I'm really shooting, if I'm right, with an f11 lens. Okay, this is pretty slow. You're going to have to be shooting at bright sunlight and what very high ISOs. But if you've got a new camera, you know, high ISO is no problem at all to keep your shutter speed up, to avoid camera shake and to avoid subject blur, especially doing wildlife or sports. But there we see. So there we have a 600mm equivalent lens for 50 quid. Right, so there we go. We've been through all my lenses, the current ones anyway. The 55 to 250, the 18 to 55, the two workhorses, they're the ones that I use the most. We've got the 51.8, fantastic little lens, great for portraits, great for subjects. We've talked about getting something like a 28 to 90 off an old film camera as a backup lens, fantastically cheap. Remember to stop it down to get the best out of it. We've talked about using a old M42 lens with extension tubes and M42 adapter for great macro work. We've talked about maybe using a wide angle converter, which is great for wide angle, and they've also got that little macro bit on there as well. And then we've talked about getting an old EF telephoto lens, combining it with a second-hand teleconverter to get us out there to massive focal length. So there we go. That's my collection of Canon EF and EFS and M42 lenses, which I picked up over the last couple of years for about £250. And I'm, you know, what lenses would I buy next? Well, I'm a skint photographer, you know, I don't have the budget to spend lots of money. My next thing will really be to upgrade my 350D to something a little bit more modern. I mean, this 350D is 7 megapixels, so most camera phones are more than that now, aren't they? But we'll see maybe what comes for Christmas at the end of the year. So there we go. My name's Rob from robnunphoto.com. If you've got any questions, email me scalespeeder@gmail.com, or put a question in the comments below the video, or preferably over on robnunphoto.com, because they're the ones I get to see an awful lot. Right, brilliant. Thanks for watching.